Magandang araw, kamusta po kayo? Ako po si Darna, ang host at creator ng Buhay Tuklas. Samahan niyo po ako sa mga pagtuklas at pagpapakilala at dagdag kaalaman para sa inyong mga manunood ng YouTube video. Nais kong makapagbigay ng saya at konting kaalaman sa inyo bilang isang tagalikha. Halina't samahan niyo ako sa isa na namang pagtuklas at pagpapakilala at ating alamin ang pinagmulan.
Ranking 5 NBA teams that hold most first-round draft picks. The Oklahoma City Thunder shocked the NBA world 5 years ago when they received a record 5 first-round draft picks, 2 pick swaps and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander from the LA Clippers in a trade for Paul George. Thanks in part to that load of draft picks and Gilgeous-Alexander developing into an MVP contender, the Thunder are a favorite to win the Western Conference this season. The return value from that trade between the Clippers and Thunder set the standard in how fringe playoff teams would rebuild by acquiring multiple future draft picks and adding more young prospects to the roster. In the years following that franchise-altering trade in 2019, other teams have followed the Thunder's blueprint to acquire picks and prospects. The Houston Rockets, Utah Jazz, San Antonio Spurs and Brooklyn Nets have acquired 22 first-round picks and 7 years of pick swaps in 6 different trades. Each team received a minimum of 3 first-rounders. In 2 separate trades with the Phoenix Suns and the New York Knicks, Brooklyn acquired 9 first-round picks, including 8 unprotected. As a result of all the transactional movement, 5 teams control a whopping 62 first-round picks over the next 7 years. Brooklyn, Oklahoma City, Utah and San Antonio hold 13 out of the 30 first-round selections. The blockbuster trades have resulted in a perfect storm as it relates to the 2025 NBA draft that could feature the next franchise stars, Duke's Cooper Flagg, the Rutgers duo of Arias, Ace, Bailey and Dylan Harper and French guard Nolan Traoré. The 4 players are projected top 5 picks in ESPN's latest 2025 mock draft. To gain a better understanding of which teams are positioned to dominate the league's annual draft for the rest of this decade, here's my ranking of the cache of picks for the 5 teams that hold the most first-round choices as of Sept. 10, 2024. It starts with San Antonio, which could have 4 first-round picks in June and the possibility of selecting a franchise player to complement star Victor Wembanyama. It's all about quality over quantity for San Antonio, which sits in the top spot of my ranking despite having 3 fewer first-round picks than Brooklyn. The value of the Hawks' unprotected 2025 and 2027 first-round picks and the right to swap a first in 2026 with Atlanta trumps any first-round pick that Brooklyn has accumulated. The Hawks won 36 games last season and traded DeJounte Murray in the offseason. They have never won more than 43 games with Trae Young on their roster. Besides a first from Atlanta in 2025, the Spurs could add 2 additional lottery picks to join Victor Wembanyama, their own pick and a top 10 protected first from Chicago. Despite San Antonio adding veterans Chris Paul, Harrison Barnes this offseason, the Spurs could still find themselves outside of the playoffs because of a deep Western Conference contingency. The first from Chicago could be in the back end of the lottery. The Bulls elected not to sign DeMar DeRozan, trading him to the Sacramento Kings, and they traded guard Alex Caruso to the Thunder. San Antonio has an unprotected first from Atlanta in 2027 and one from Minnesota in 2031. The Spurs can also swap firsts in 4 out of the next 7 years. Starting with Atlanta in 2026, San Antonio has the ability to swap firsts with Boston 2028, Dallas or Minnesota 2029, and finally Sacramento in 2031. The Spurs' 12 first-round picks and 4 years of pick swaps should accelerate a rebuild that started when Kawhi Leonard was traded in 2018 and continues with Wembanyama as the face of the franchise. It was hard not to keep Oklahoma City out of the top spot, but protections on first-round picks that are owed to the Thunder has them right behind San Antonio. Out of the 5 teams that control the draft's 2025 first round, no team is better positioned to win now and have sustainable success in the future than Oklahoma City. Behind Gilgeous-Alexander, the Thunder return the same starting lineup that won 57 games last season. They also added Caruso and Isaiah Hartenstein without giving up draft compensation. Of note, Oklahoma City's payroll is expected to increase because of likely extensions for Gilgeous-Alexander, Jalen Williams, Chet Holmgren and Caruso. Where the Thunder have an advantage over other high-spending teams is the surplus of 13 first-round picks and inexpensive contracts available to retool their roster. One of those first-round picks is unprotected in 2026 from the Clippers. The Thunder also have the right to swap firsts with a Paul George-less Clippers team in 2025 and 2027. One trend to closely monitor is Oklahoma City consolidating and trading first-round capital for the ability to swap firsts in the future. Last season, the Thunder traded a late 2024 first to Dallas. It was eventually rerouted to the Washington Wizards for Daniel Gafford for the right to swap firsts in 2028. The Thunder also traded the least favorable of their own 2027 first in Denver, if 6-30, to the Clippers for the right to swap firsts in 2027. The trade helped pave the way for the Clippers to acquire James Harden. Because of the 6 first-round picks acquired from other teams and 2 years of swaps with the Clippers, the Thunder could select in the lottery and also finish each season with one of the best records in the NBA. The Nets are an example of how quickly things can change in the NBA. 3 seasons ago, a lineup that included Harden, Irving and Durant had Brooklyn 1 win away from the conference finals. But after Harden asked out in 2022, then Irving and Durant a year later, Brooklyn went from a contender to a team with no identity, despite acquiring 8 first-round picks in exchange for the 3 players. The Nets had no control of their own first-round picks because of the Harden trade in 2021 with the Rockets, and there were no benefits for the team to rebuild at that time. But that all changed this past June when the Rockets traded the Nets back their own 2025 first-round pick and then eliminated the right to swap firsts in 2026. The trade with the Rockets allowed Brooklyn to send their best player, Mikal Bridges, to the New York Knicks for 4 unprotected first-round picks and the right to swap firsts in 2028. They're absolutely connected, Nets general manager Sean Marks said in July. When you look at doing the deal we did with the Knicks, that was really only possible by controlling our own destiny a little bit more, where we get our picks back from Houston. The Bridges trade has Brooklyn possessing a league-high 15 first-round picks over the next 7 years, including 4 in the 2025 draft. 3 of those firsts, Milwaukee, New York and Oklahoma City, could fall later in the first round, in the 20s. The Jazz continue to sit in a holding pattern. Out of the 7 first-round picks acquired in the Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell blockbuster trades, only 1 has been conveyed. Utah drafted guard Keontae George with the 2023 first-round pick from Minnesota. Utah does have the same number of first-round picks as the Thunder, including 5 unprotected, but it lacks a franchise player to fast-forward its rebuild. The Jazz could be impacted also by the value of the Cavaliers and Timberwolves first-round picks, too. Cleveland extended Mitchell, Jared Allen and Evan Mobley this offseason. Meanwhile, Minnesota returns the same starting 5 who reached the conference finals last season. Anthony Edwards, Karl Anthony Towns and Jaden McDaniels are also under contract through at least the 2027-28 season. Utah has an unprotected first-round pick from each team in 2025. Its most valuable first could be from the Lakers in 2027. Although it is a protected TOP5, there is no guarantee LeBron James will be on the roster in 2026-27 since the 4-time NBA champion, who turns 40 on December 30th, has indicated that the end of his playing career is drawing near. The Jazz enter year 3 of a rebuild that started in 2022 but have still not been able to secure a high lottery pick despite going 13-41 after the trade deadline the past 2 seasons. Utah signed Lauri Markkanen to a $220 million extension, but the majority of the roster consists of 9 players who are 23 years old or younger.
Mag-subscribe sa aming channel para sa higit pang nakakangganyo na makasaysayang nilalaman at tiyaking pindutin ang notification bell upang hindi makaligtaan ang isang update. I-like, ibahagi, at iwanan ang iyong mga saloobin sa seksyon ng mga komento sa ibaba. Salamat sa pagsama sa amin sa nakakapagpapaliwanag na paglalakbay na ito. Hanggang dito na lang mga katuklas ko at umaasa po ako na napasaya ko kayo at nakapagbigay ako ng konting kaalaman. Kung nagustuhan po ninyo ang content, inaanyayahan ko po kayo na mag-subscribe at hit the notification bell para sa mga bagong video na aking ilalabas at paki-like na rin po ang video bilang tulong at pagsuporta sa Buhay Tuklas. Maraming salamat po and God bless.